The alarm bells rang across every military base on Earth at exactly 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jake Morrison had been drinking his morning coffee in the United Nations building when the first reports came in. Giant ships were appearing in the sky over major cities around the world. Jake dropped his coffee mug and ran to the emergency command center. The hallways filled with diplomats, military officers, and scientists, all rushing to see what was happening. The main screen showed live footage from New York City, where a massive ship hung in the air above Manhattan like a floating crystal palace. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It looked like it was made of clear glass and silver metal with lights that pulsed in patterns no human had ever seen. The ship was easily the size of 10 city blocks, and it floated without making any sound at all. Dr. Lisa Carter, the lead scientist for alien contact protocols, stood next to Jake watching the screens. She had spent her whole career preparing for this moment, but now that it was happening, she felt completely unprepared. "Are they hostile?" asked General Pete Williams, the head of Earth's Defense Forces. "We don't know yet," Lisa replied. "They're not attacking, but they're also not responding to any of our communication attempts." Similar ships appeared over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and 12 other major cities. Each ship was identical, hanging motionless in the sky about 2 miles above the ground. People in the streets below stopped what they were doing and stared upward. Some ran away in panic while others took pictures with their phones. President Karen Blake arrived at the UN building 30 minutes later. She had been rushed there in a military helicopter from Washington. Her face was calm, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "Status report," she said as soon as she entered the command center. 16 ships total, reported Commander Amy Torres from the Space Monitoring Station. They appeared simultaneously across all time zones. No aggressive movements, no weapons. Detected, but they're definitely not from Earth. "Have they tried to communicate?" the president asked. "Not until now," Lisa said. Then she paused as her headset crackled with new information. "Wait, something's happening." On the main screen, the ship over New York began to glow brighter. A beam of light shot down from the bottom of the ship, and slowly, a figure began to descend through the beam. The figure was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to change color from silver to light blue. The being landed gently in Central Park, where thousands of people had gathered to watch. It was clearly not human, but it walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms like a person. Its face was smooth and beautiful, with large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The being raised one hand, and suddenly, every television, radio, and internet device on Earth began broadcasting the same message. The voice was clear and musical, speaking in perfect English, but somehow everyone on Earth heard it in their own language. "People of Earth," the voice said, "do not be afraid. We come in peace. We are the Viridian Collective, and we have traveled far to find you." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The being hadn't moved its mouth, but everyone could hear its words clearly. "We have been watching your world for some time," the voice continued. "Your species shows great promise. You are young, but you have potential. That is why we have come, to offer you a great gift." President Blake leaned forward. "What kind of gift?" As if the being could hear her, it replied, "We offer you protection. Your world is beautiful, and your people are precious. We wish to keep you safe from the dangers that exist in the dark spaces between the stars." Dr. Carter stepped closer to the screen. "Protection from what exactly?" The being, who had introduced itself as Prime Coordinator Zafira, turned toward the camera as if looking directly at Lisa. "From forces that your young civilization cannot yet understand. We have seen many worlds like yours destroyed by threats from deep space. We do not wish to see Earth suffer the same fate." "Commander." Torres frowned. "What kind of threats? We've been monitoring space for decades. We haven't detected any hostile alien forces." Zafira's expression remained calm and slightly condescending, like a parent talking to a small child. "That is exactly why you need our protection. You cannot see the dangers because you do not yet know how to look for them." The being gestured gracefully toward the sky. "We are an ancient race. We have protected many worlds across the galaxy. Under our guidance, Civilizations flourish in safety and peace. We can offer the same to Earth. General Williams stepped forward. And what would this protection cost us? Cost? Zephyra seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. There is no cost. We ask only that you trust us and allow us to establish the necessary protective measures around your world. What kind of protective measures? President Blake asked. We will need to build certain facilities on your planet. These will create energy fields that will shield Earth from detection by hostile forces. We will also need to ensure that your military forces do not accidentally interfere with our protection systems. The room fell silent. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Something about this offer felt wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. Dr. Carter spoke up again. You said you've protected other worlds. Can we speak with representatives from these other civilizations? Zephyra paused for just a moment before answering. The worlds under our protection are far from here. Communication across such distances is difficult, but we can assure you that they are safe and prosperous. How long have you been watching Earth? Asked Commander Torres. Long enough to know that you are worth saving, Zephyra replied. Your species has a unique spark of creativity and determination. We would hate to see that light extinguished by forces beyond your control. President Blake requested a private consultation with her advisors. The alien being seemed to understand and said it would wait for Earth's decision. The ships remained in position over the cities but took no further action. In the secure conference room, the world's leaders and top scientists gathered around a table. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. It sounds too good to be true, said Dr. Carter. Advanced aliens offering free protection? There has to be a catch. Maybe they're genuinely trying to help, suggested Senator Paul Martinez. Not all first contact scenarios have to be hostile. General Williams shook his head. In my experience, nobody offers something for nothing, especially not something as significant as planetary protection. Jake had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. Did anyone else notice that they didn't actually answer our questions? We asked about specific threats, and they gave us vague warnings about dangers in the dark. We asked about other protected worlds, and they said communication was difficult. President Blake nodded slowly. You're right. They're being evasive. But what if they're telling the truth? What if there really are threats out there that we can't detect? Then we need to find out what those threats are before we agree to anything, Dr. Carter said firmly. We can't make a decision this important based on vague promises and mysterious warnings. The president made her decision. We'll ask for more. Time to consider their offer. Meanwhile, I want our best people working on this. If there are really threats in space that we can't see, I want to know what they are. As the meeting ended, Jake stared out the window at the alien ship hanging over New York. It looked peaceful and beautiful, but something deep in his gut told him that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. The age of innocence was over. The question now was whether humanity would survive what came next. 3 months had passed since the Viridians first appeared over Earth's cities. The alien ship still floated in the sky, patient and silent, while their representatives met with world leaders every day. The meetings took place in a specially built facility in Geneva, where humans and aliens sat across from each other at a round table. Dr. Ryan Cooper walked into the morning briefing carrying a thick folder of documents. His job was to analyze everything the Viridians had told them and look for problems. What he had found made his stomach feel sick. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan said to the assembled group of world leaders and military officials, we have a serious problem. President Blake looked up from her coffee. What did you find? Ryan opened his folder and spread papers across the table. The Viridians have finally given us their detailed protection plan. It's not what we expected. Jake Morrison leaned forward to look at the documents. The papers were covered with charts, diagrams, and lists of requirements. Walk us through. He said. First, Ryan began, they want us to completely eliminate all nuclear weapons. Not reduce them, not put them in storage. Destroy every single nuclear warhead on the planet. General Williams frowned. That's our primary deterrent against any hostile force. It gets worse, Ryan continued. They also want us to reduce our military forces by 90%. They say large armies might accidentally interfere with their protection systems. Captain Amy Torres, who had been promoted to head of Space Command, slammed her hand on the table. They want us defenseless. What kind of protection requires the protected to be completely helpless? Ryan turned to the next page. They also want access to our industrial facilities, steel mills, electronics factories, shipyards, everything. They need to build what they call protection nodes all around the world. Dr. Lisa Carter had been quiet during the presentation, but now she spoke up. I've been studying the preliminary construction they've already started. The energy readings are very strange. Strange how? Asked President Blake. Lisa pulled out her own set of documents. They told us these early facilities were just communication relays, but my team has been monitoring them with every sensor we have. They're not communication devices. She pointed to a series of graphs and measurements. The energy patterns suggest some kind of collection or harvesting system. They're drawing power from something, but we can't figure out what. Senator Paul Martinez had been working with his intelligence contacts around the world. My sources in various governments report similar findings. These aren't defensive installations, they're doing something else entirely. Jake studied the papers in front of him. Have you been able to determine what they're harvesting? That's the really disturbing part, Lisa said. The energy signature matches bioelectric fields, the kind that living creatures produce. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Commander Pete Williams was the first to speak. Are you saying they're feeding off us somehow? I don't know yet, Lisa admitted. But I've also been analyzing the biological samples they provided for our scientific exchange program. Their physiology is completely different from what they told us. She pulled out another set of documents. They claim to be carbon-based life forms like us, but that's not true. Their cellular structure suggests they're energy-based beings. They might actually need bioelectric energy to survive. President Blake felt a chill run through her body. So they're not here to protect us from something else? No, Ryan said grimly. I think they're here to protect their food source from interference. The implications of this discovery hit everyone at the same time. The aliens weren't benevolent protectors. They were farmers, and humanity was their crop. Dr. Carter continued her report. I've been trying to verify their claims about other protected civilizations. Every time I ask for specific information, they give me vague answers or change the subject. Have you found any evidence that these other civilizations actually exist? Asked Jake. None at all, Lisa replied. In fact, when I cross-referenced their claims with our deep space observations, several of the star systems they mentioned as protected worlds show no signs of advanced civilization at all. Captain Torres had been working on her own investigation. I've been analyzing their ships with our most advanced sensors. Their technology is impressive, but it's not designed for protection. It's designed for harvesting and transportation. She showed them detailed scans of the alien vessels. Look at these cargo bays. They're massive, and they're designed to hold large quantities of organic material. These aren't warships or defense platforms. They're collection ships. General Williams studied the scans. What about their weapons systems? That's another interesting thing, Torres replied. They have weapons, but they're not designed to fight other spaceships. They're designed to pacify ground-based populations. Stun weapons, paralysis fields, things like that. The evidence was building into a terrifying picture. Jake summarized what they had learned. So we have aliens who lie about their biology, lie about their previous successes, want us to disarm completely, and are building harvesting equipment around our planet. And their ships are designed to collect organic material and control populations, added Torres. President Blake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the alien ship floating over Geneva, beautiful and menacing at the same time. The question is, what do we do about it? Dr. Carter had been thinking about this problem for weeks. We need to know more about what we're really facing. If they're part of some kind of galactic farming operation, there might be others involved. What do you mean? Asked Senator Martinez. Think about it, Lisa explained. Farmers don't eat their own crops. They sell them or trade them to someone else. If the Viridians are cosmic farmers, who are their customers? The room became very quiet as everyone considered this possibility. They might not just be facing one alien species, but an entire network of civilizations that viewed humanity as livestock. Ryan Cooper had been working on this exact problem. I've been analyzing their communication patterns. They're definitely talking to someone, but not on frequencies we can easily monitor. Can you break their encryption? Asked President Blake. My team is working on it, Ryan replied. But it might take months to crack their codes. Jake had been thinking about their situation from a different angle. We need to buy time. If we're right about their intentions, they won't act until they've completed their preparations. We need to figure out what they're really planning before they're ready to implement it. President Blake nodded. Agreed, but we also need to start preparing our own response. If they are planning to harvest us, we need to be ready to fight back. Fight back against technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours? Asked General Williams. We're humans, Torres said with a grim smile. Fighting impossible odds is what we do best. Lisa had one more piece of disturbing information to share. There's something else you should know. I've been monitoring global bioelectric field levels since they arrived. The fields are getting stronger. What does that mean? Asked Jake. It means whatever they're doing to us, it's already started. The harvesting process might have begun the moment they arrived. President Blake made a decision that would change the course of human history. Gentlemen and ladies, I'm authorizing Operation Looking Glass. We're going to find out exactly what threats exist in space, with or without alien help. She turned to face the group. If the Viridians are telling the truth about cosmic dangers, we need to know what they are before we give up our ability to defend ourselves. If they're lying, we need to know what we're really facing. And if we discover they're planning to harvest us? Asked Ryan. Blake's expression hardened. Then we show them that humanity has never been anyone's prey, and we never will be. The meeting ended with new assignments for everyone. Humanity was about to begin the most important investigation in its history, and the survival of the entire species might depend on what they discovered. 6 months had passed since Operation Looking Glass began. Chief Engineer Ben Walsh had been working 18-hour days in the secret facility hidden beneath the mountains of Colorado. His team had been upgrading Earth's deep space monitoring systems, pushing them far beyond anything the Viridians knew humans could build. The work was dangerous and exhausting. They had to be completely invisible to the alien ships that still hung over Earth's cities. Every piece of equipment had to be shielded and hidden. If the Viridians discovered what they were doing, the entire operation would be over. Ben wiped sweat from his forehead as he made the final adjustments to the primary sensor array. The new system could detect objects in space at distances that would have been impossible just a year ago. If there were threats out there, this system would find them. Power levels are stable, reported Dr. Sarah Kim, his lead technician. All sensors are online and functioning within normal parameters. Begin the deep scan, Ben ordered. Full spectrum analysis, maximum range. The massive computers hummed to life, processing signals from across the galaxy. For the first hour, they found nothing unusual, just the normal background radiation and distant stars that they had always detected. Then the computers began to pick up something else. I'm getting anomalous readings, Sarah called out. Multiple contacts bearing 270 degrees, distance approximately 47 light-years. Ben rushed to her station and looked at the data streaming across her screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. How many contacts? I count at least 30 separate signatures, Sarah replied. They're big, boss, really big, and they're moving. The objects on the screen were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They were dark, massive, and moving through space in a formation that suggested intelligence and purpose. Most disturbing of all, they were heading directly toward Earth's solar system. Ben immediately activated the emergency communication system. Within minutes, he was connected to President Blake, Jake Morrison, and the rest of the Looking Glass team. We found them, Ben announced without preamble. Whatever the Viridians are supposedly protecting us from, they're real and they're coming this way. The secure video conference connected world leaders and scientists from around the globe. President Blake leaned forward on her screen. "Show us what you found." Ben transmitted the sensor data to all the connected locations. The images appeared on screens in Washington, London, Moscow, and a dozen other cities. The reaction was immediate and horrified. "What are we looking at?" asked General Williams from his command center. "Unknown vessels," Ben replied. 38 separate contacts, each one approximately the size of a large city. They're moving, at incredible speed, and their trajectory puts them on a direct course for Earth. Dr. Lisa Carter had been analyzing the data from her laboratory. The energy signatures are completely different from the Viridians. These ships seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. That's why we couldn't see them with our previous sensors. Captain Torres studied the movement patterns. They're traveling in formation. This isn't a random migration or natural phenomenon. Someone is controlling these ships, and they have a specific destination in mind. Jake Morrison had been quietly calculating numbers in his head. "How long until they reach us?" Ben consulted his computers. "Based on their current speed and trajectory, they'll enter our solar system in approximately 18 months. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. The Viridians had been telling the truth about threats in space, but that didn't make their offer any less suspicious. Dr. Carter had been working on breaking the Viridian communication codes for months. Finally, her efforts were paying off. "I have more information," she announced. "We've managed to intercept and decode some of the communications between the aliens and these approaching ships." She transmitted her findings to the conference. The ships belong to something called the Devourers, and they're not just random attackers. President Blake studied the translated messages. "What exactly are we looking at here?" Lisa took a deep breath before explaining what she had discovered. The Viridians and the Devourers have a business relationship. The Viridians find inhabited worlds, offer protection, convince the population to disarm, then prepare them for harvesting when the Devourers arrive. The implications hit everyone at the same time. Senator Martinez was the first to speak. "So the Viridians are like ranchers and the Devourers are their customers." "Exactly," Lisa confirmed. "It's a galaxy-wide farming operation. The Viridians soften up the target worlds and the Devourers do the actual harvesting." General Williams slammed his fist on his desk. "They've been preparing us for slaughter this entire time." Jake had been studying the intercepted communications. "According to these messages, this isn't the first time they've done this. They mentioned dozens of other worlds that have been harvested over the centuries." Captain Torres was analyzing the technical data about the Devourer ships. "These vessels are designed for one purpose: consuming entire civilizations. They have massive processing facilities, collection systems, and what appears to be storage for millions of life forms." Ben Walsh had been running additional scans while the others talked. "I'm detecting more details about their technology. The Devourer ships don't just take people. They strip entire planets of all biological material. Plants, animals, microorganisms, everything." Dr. Carter had found more disturbing information in the communications. "They're not just harvesting for food. The messages mention something about converting biological energy into a form they can use for interstellar travel. They're using entire civilizations as fuel," Jake said grimly. President Blake stood up in her office, her face set with determination.
"How many worlds have they destroyed?" Lisa consulted her translations. The communications mentioned successful harvests on 47 different worlds over the past 3,000 years. Earth would be number 48. The scale of the genocide
was almost impossible to comprehend. Billions of intelligent beings across the galaxy had been systematically harvested by this partnership between the Viridians and the Devourers. Colonel Steve Adams, President Blake's military advisor, raised an important question. "Why haven't any of these civilizations fought back successfully?" "Because they all fell for the same trick we almost did," Torres replied. "The Viridians convinced them to disarm in exchange for protection. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late to defend themselves." Ben had been monitoring the Devourer fleet continuously. There's something else you should know. They're not just coming for Earth. The sensor data shows they're planning to harvest our entire solar system. Mars, Jupiter's moons, everywhere there might be any form of life. Dr. Carter had uncovered the timeline for the harvest. According to the communications, the Viridians were supposed to have us completely pacified by now. The Devourers are expecting to find a defenseless world when they arrive. But we're not defenseless, General Williams said. We still have our military forces and our nuclear weapons. For now, Jake replied. But the Viridians are getting impatient. They've been pushing harder for us to accept their complete protection plan. President Blake had heard enough. Ladies and gentlemen, we now know exactly what we're facing. The question is, what are we going to do about it? The room was quiet for a moment as everyone considered their options. They were facing an enemy with technology thousands of years ahead of their own, supported by a galactic network of world killers. Finally, Jake Morrison spoke up. We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. Which is? Asked the president. Jake smiled grimly. We prove that we're nobody's livestock. We have 18 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. Captain Torres nodded. The Devourers and Viridians think they're dealing with helpless prey. They're about to learn that they've made a serious mistake. President Blake made the decision that would define humanity's future. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Looking Glass immediately. We're going to show the galaxy that Earth doesn't bow to anyone. The age of human resistance was about to begin. The year that followed was the most extraordinary period in human history. While the Viridians continued building their protection nodes and pressuring world governments to disarm, humanity was secretly preparing for war on a scale never before imagined. Director Claire Foster stood in the massive underground facility that had become the headquarters of the Unified Earth Defense Project. The cavern stretched for miles in every direction, filled with factories, laboratories, and training centers. Thousands of people worked around the clock, building weapons and systems that would have been pure science fiction just 2 years earlier. Status report, Claire called out as she walked through the main production floor. Dr. Gary Phillips, the former NASA engineer who now headed the Propulsion Research Division, looked up from his blueprints. We've cracked the basic principles. Behind Viridian anti-gravity technology, their protection nodes were giving off energy signatures that we've been able to reverse engineer. How long until we have working prototypes? Claire asked. 3 weeks for the first test models, Gary replied. Full production should begin within 2 months. Claire nodded and continued her tour. The scale of the operation was staggering. Every retired engineer, scientist, and technician had been quietly recalled to service. Every mothballed factory had been secretly reactivated. Humanity was building an arsenal unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. She stopped at the weapons development section, where Dr. Helen Rodriguez was working on humanity's most ambitious project. Helen had been a theoretical physicist before. The crisis began. Now she was designing weapons that could destroy ships the size of cities. How is Project Prometheus coming along? Claire asked. Helen looked up from her calculations, her eyes bright with excitement and exhaustion. We're not trying to match their technology. We're creating something completely different. She led Claire to a demonstration area where several strange devices were being tested. The Viridians and Devourers have been using the same basic technologies for thousands of years. Their approach is elegant and efficient, but it's also predictable. Helen activated one of the devices. It hummed with energy and created a shimmering field in the air. This is a quantum disruption field. It breaks down the fundamental bonds that hold matter together. Their shields are designed to stop energy, weapons and projectiles, but they've never encountered anything like this. Claire watched as the field was directed toward a sample of Viridian metal they had obtained from one of the protection nodes. The advanced alien material simply dissolved into its component atoms. That's incredible, Claire said. What else have you developed? Helen moved to another device. Gravity manipulation weapons. We learned that the Devourers' massive ships rely on artificial gravity to hold their structure together. If we can disrupt that gravity, their ships will literally tear themselves apart. The demonstration showed how the weapon could create gravity waves that bent space itself. It was based on principles that human science had only theorized about before the alien arrival. "And this is our most unusual creation," Helen said, pointing to a device that looked like a combination of computer and radio. "We call it a thought pattern disruptor. The Viridians are energy-based life forms, which means their consciousness exists as organized energy patterns. This device scrambles those patterns." Claire stared at the machine. "You built a weapon that can attack their minds?" "Exactly. They've never encountered anything like it because most species don't even know that energy-based consciousness exists." Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, Captain Amy Torres was overseeing the most ambitious construction project in human history. The secret shipyards on the far side of the moon had been working non-stop to build Earth's first true space fleet. "How many ships will be ready when the Devourers arrive?" Claire asked as she joined Torres in the command center. 247 combat vessels, Torres replied. Each one is a hybrid of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology. The ships were unlike anything in Earth's previous military arsenal. They were fast, maneuverable, and armed with weapons that combined human creativity with alien science. Most importantly, they were designed to work together in ways that no previous fleet had ever attempted. "The Devourers expect to find a defenseless world," Torres continued. "Instead, they're going to face a fleet that doesn't follow any of the standard patterns of galactic warfare." Claire studied the ship designs on the screens around them. Each vessel was unique, built for specific roles in the coming battle. Some were designed for hit-and-run attacks, others for direct assault, and still others for support and coordination. "What about the crews?" Claire asked. "We've been training pilots and soldiers for months," Torres replied. "Everyone knows this is humanity's only chance. The level of dedication and skill we're seeing is extraordinary. The training programs had been unlike anything in military history. Humans were learning to fight in three-dimensional space against enemies they had never seen before. They were mastering weapons that used principles of physics that had been theoretical just months earlier. Dr. Ryan Cooper had been working on the intelligence and coordination aspects of the defense. His job was to figure out how to use Earth's advantages against the superior alien technology. "We've identified several key factors that work in our favor," he reported to the weekly strategy meeting. "First, the Devourers and Viridians have been successful for thousands of years. They're overconfident and set in their ways." He pulled up tactical analyses on the main screen. "Second, they've never faced resistance like what we're planning. Every previous civilization either surrendered or was defeated quickly. They're not prepared for a prolonged fight." "What's our biggest advantage?" Ari asked General Williams. "Human unpredictability," Ryan replied. "Their entire approach is based on established patterns. They expect certain responses to certain situations, but humans don't follow patterns. We adapt, improvise, and come up with solutions that shouldn't work but do." Claire had been coordinating with resistance cells around the world. "What about the Viridians currently on Earth?" "They suspect something, but they don't know the full scope of what we're doing," Ryan said. "We've been feeding them false information about our compliance with their disarmament demands. They think we're progressing slowly but steadily toward complete pacification." The deception had been crucial to their success. On the surface, it appeared that humanity was gradually accepting Viridian protection. Nuclear weapons were being moved to storage facilities that the aliens could monitor. Military forces were being reduced and reorganized. The protection nodes continued to be built with human cooperation. But beneath the surface, the greatest mobilization in human history was taking place. The storage facilities were actually secret weapons development centers. The military reorganization was creating specialized units for space combat. And the protection nodes were being modified to serve as weapons platforms when the time came. Dr. Lisa Carter had been working on the most critical aspect of the entire operation. She had discovered how to turn the Viridians' own technology against them. "Every protection node is connected to the others through a quantum communication network," she explained to the leadership team. "If we can access that network, we can take control of their entire system." "How?" asked President Blake. "We've been building backdoors into every node as they're constructed," Lisa replied. "The Viridians think we're just providing construction labor, but our engineers have been installing hidden access points. The plan was audacious. When the Devourers arrived, humanity would simultaneously activate every protection node as a weapon, turning the aliens' own defensive system into a planet-wide attack platform. "What are our chances of success?" President Blake asked. Claire looked around the room at the faces of the people who had worked tirelessly for over a year to prepare for this moment. "Honestly, we're facing impossible odds. The enemy has technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours. They have experience destroying dozens of civilizations. They have ships that can wipe out entire planets." "But," prompted the president. Claire smiled. "But they've never fought humans before. They don't understand what we're capable of when our survival is at stake. And they're about to find out that there's a very good reason why Earth has never been conquered." The final preparations were almost complete. In just a few months, the Devourers would arrive expecting to find a helpless world ready for harvest. Instead, they would face something that would become legend across the galaxy. Humanity united in defiance, armed with impossible weapons, and absolutely refusing to surrender. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The Devourer fleet arrived on a cold morning in March, exactly 18 months after Earth's sensors first detected them. Admiral Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching the massive dark ships emerge from the edge of the solar system like nightmares made real. Each Devourer vessel was the size of a major city, their black hulls seeming to absorb the light from nearby stars. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable, heading directly toward Earth. Behind them followed smaller support ships, ready to begin the harvest that had destroyed 47 other civilizations. "Contact from the lead ship," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They're transmitting to the Viridians on Earth." Jake listened as the alien communication was translated by Earth's computers. The message was simple and terrifying. "Harvest preparation complete. Beginning collection procedures." Down on Earth, the Viridians were receiving the same message. Prime Coordinator Zephyra stood in her command center, expecting to hear that humanity had been successfully pacified and was ready for harvesting. Instead, she received reports that confused and worried her. "The humans have not completed disarmament as scheduled," reported one of her subordinates. "Military forces remain at significant levels, and we have detected unusual energy readings from several locations." Zephyra was not concerned. In her experience, pre-harvest resistance was always brief and futile. "Begin activation of the protection nodes. Once the planetary suppression field is active, any remaining resistance will be neutralized." But when the Viridians tried to activate their protection nodes, something went very wrong. Instead of creating suppression fields, the nodes began to pulse with hostile energy. Every single installation that the aliens had built over the past 18 months suddenly turned into a weapon pointed at the sky. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in the underground command center, her fingers dancing across the control systems. "All nodes are under our control," she announced. "The planetary defense grid is online and ready." President Blake stood beside her, watching as 18 months of preparation finally came together. "Begin Operation Liberation." High above Earth, Admiral Harrison received the signal he had been waiting for. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast to every ship in both fleets, Devourer and human alike. "This is Admiral Jake Harrison of the Terran Defense Force," he announced. "To the Devourer fleet, you came here expecting to find helpless prey ready for harvest. You came here thinking you would face no resistance. You were wrong." The response from the Devourer command ship was immediate and dismissive. The alien voice was cold and mechanical. "Inferior species, surrender immediately. Resistance will only prolong your suffering." Jake smiled grimly. "You've been harvesting civilizations for thousands of years. You think you understand how this works, but you've never faced humans before." As if to emphasize his point, the human fleet suddenly appeared from behind the moon, moving faster than anything the Devourers had ever encountered. The Earth ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps, their weapons already charging for the first attack. Captain Amy Torres led the first wave, her squadron of fast attack ships armed with quantum disruption weapons. "Target their main hulls," she ordered. "Let's see how their armor handles something they've never seen before." The quantum disruption field struck the lead Devourer ship, and the effect was immediate and devastating. Sections of the massive vessel simply dissolved, their molecular bonds broken down at the fundamental level. The ship's shields, designed to stop energy beams and projectile weapons, were completely useless against an attack that worked on the quantum level. "Impossible," transmitted the Devourer commander. "Our defenses are impenetrable." "Not against human weapons," Torres replied, leading her squadron in for another attack run. On Earth, Dr. Helen Rodriguez activated the gravity manipulation weapons that had been secretly built into the protection nodes. Massive gravity waves erupted from the planet's surface, reaching out into space to grab the Devourer ships. The aliens had never encountered anything like it. Their massive vessels, which relied on artificial gravity to maintain structural integrity, suddenly found themselves being torn apart by competing gravitational forces. 3 of the largest Devourer ships broke into pieces as their own gravity systems turned against them. The Viridians tried to escape, but they discovered that their own technology had been turned into a trap. Every protection node on Earth was now broadcasting thought pattern disruption signals, scrambling the energy-based consciousness of any Viridian within range. Coordinator Zephyra felt her thoughts becoming confused and scattered as the disruption field affected her mind. She had never experienced anything like it. In desperation, she tried to contact the Devourer fleet for assistance, but found that her communication systems had also been compromised. The battle in space was unlike anything in galactic history. The Devourers had expected to face primitive weapons and basic tactics. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any established patterns of warfare. Commander Pete Williams led a group of ships armed with converted protection node technology. They had learned to use the Viridians' own energy manipulation systems as weapons, creating fields that disrupted the Devourers' power systems. Their technology is thousands of years old, Williams reported, as his ships disabled another enemy vessel. "It's advanced, but it's also predictable. They've been doing the same thing for so long that they can't adapt to new tactics." The human fleet moved in patterns that confused and frustrated the alien commanders. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the Earth ships attacked from all directions at once, using their superior speed and maneuverability to strike and retreat before the massive Devourer weapons could target them. Dr. Gary Phillips had been right about human unpredictability. The Devourers kept trying to respond to human tactics with established countermeasures, but every time they adapted to one human strategy, the Earth forces would switch to something completely different. The tide of battle turned decisively when Chief Engineer Ben Walsh activated the planet's ultimate weapon. Every protection node on Earth synchronized simultaneously, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse that reached far into space. The pulse was precisely tuned to disrupt the specific energy frequencies that the Devourer ships used for their power systems. Half of the alien fleet went dark instantly, their ships drifting helplessly through space without power or life support. "How is this possible?" transmitted the Devourer commander, his voice filled with confusion and growing fear. "We have harvested 47 worlds. We are invincible." Admiral Harrison's response was broadcast on all frequencies. "You were invincible against everyone else, but you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" demanded the alien commander. "You assumed we were like all the other species you've destroyed," Jake replied. "You thought we would surrender when faced with superior technology. You thought we would accept defeat when the odds were against us. You thought we were prey." The human fleet pressed their attack, using weapons and tactics that the Devourers couldn't understand or counter. The quantum disruption fields continued to dissolve alien hull armor. The gravity weapons tore ships apart from the inside. The thought pattern disruptors left Viridian crews unable to function. Within 6 hours, it was over. The surviving Devourer ships were fleeing toward deep space, their formation broken and their confidence shattered. The Viridians on Earth had been captured or destroyed, their harvesting operation completely defeated. President Blake addressed the United Nations as the last alien ship disappeared into the darkness between stars. "Today, humanity proved something that will echo across the galaxy for generations to come. We proved that no species has the right to harvest another. We proved that intelligence and determination can overcome superior technology, and we proved that Earth bows to no one. The Kiao. Victory had cost lives and resources, but it had also established humanity as a force that would never again be underestimated. The galaxy now knew that Earth was not a world to be harvested, but a civilization to be respected. In the months that followed, as humanity began to explore beyond the solar system, they would discover that their victory over the Devourers had already become legend among the stars. Species that had lived in fear of the harvesters for millennia now looked to Earth as a symbol of hope and resistance. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, and the cosmos would never be the same.